Hi, my name is Scott Lawrence. I'm a professional headshot and portrait photographer. I wanted to take a few minutes today to give you some headshot essential tips for professionals. So, whether you're a small business owner or freelancer, or even if you work for a large corporation, I think you'll find some valuable information here. Would you hire this person? Do you recognize this photo? This is actually what you'll see on LinkedIn for people that don't have photos attached to their profiles. It still amazes me how many people have yet to put a photo on their profile. But this is the reality that we live in. So my hope is that the tips here that we'll talk about will help you as you think about getting a photo if you're one of those who doesn't have one, or if you already have a photo, it'll give you some things to think about in terms of evaluating your current image. In today's digital world, your headshot is your first impression. So you want to make sure it's sending the right message. Whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, pick your social media platform. If you're using these platforms to represent yourself professionally, you want to make sure you have a solid headshot that conveys the message that you want to put forward. So to summarize, I'm going to highlight 6 key points here as you think about a headshot. First, light. If you don't have good light in a photo, you don't have a good photo. It's really that simple. As far as a portrait is concerned, you want to make sure that you can see skin detail in both the brighter and the darker parts of the image. If you don't see that skin detail, odds are you're going to have an overly dramatic image that's not going to be suitable for professional use. Expression is also important. You want to convey a sense of approachability. So, again, your headshot should encourage someone to want to reach out to call you for an interview or call you for a job or an estimate. And if it doesn't do that, then you need to really think about getting something else up there. Clothing is also something that is easily overlooked, but can actually ruin a photo if you make a bad choice on the clothing. I generally tell my clients that they should wear something neutral. So grays, blacks, browns, any darker tone is usually a safe bet. The thing you really want to avoid, though, is something that's a very bright or reflective fabric. Because what happens is in a studio environment, you're going to have pretty bright lights that are going to flash on the fabric, and they're going to cause reflections against the skin. So you may see a color cast on the cheeks or on the neck, and that's going to be a real nightmare to deal with in Photoshop, and if not impossible to deal with. So I would just say avoid it. And this can actually also occur outdoors too. If you're trying to take your own photo, if you're maybe standing on a big field of grass, it's very possible that you can have some green reflections back on your skin too. So just be aware of that, and I think just knowing that it's possible will help you avoid it, and you'll see it when if it comes up. Background is also important. The background should really just be simple and not distracting. You don't want it to take away from the subject of the photo, which is you. So in this case, I'm using a studio backdrop, but you certainly don't need a studio backdrop. Any plain colored wall will work, whether it's light or dark. You could use a fence. You could use a cinder block wall. The main thing to remember, though, is that you just want to avoid having a lot of distracting elements in there. So if there are lights or signs or anything that's really going to pull the viewer's attention away from your face, is something that you want to avoid. Camera angle is an interesting one. It's not uncommon to see a lot of dramatic camera angles in portraits. So you can see someone that's maybe looking down at the camera with their arms crossed. So that might be a kind of a big feature executive profile portrait. By looking down into the camera, maybe with their arms crossed, it's going to have a real power sense to it. And it's probably not what you want to put forward for a more general or neutral headshot. It's possible you might want that look, but in general, I would say it's a little too aggressive. And on the flip side, you also want to be weary of being too low relative to the camera, because if you're looking up at the camera, it puts you in kind of a weaker position. And again, it's probably not the message that you want to convey for your professional profile. Finally, crop is also important. In this case, it's a nice square crop, which is pretty typical of most social media profile photos, and it works well for a portrait. When you look at the eyes, you can see that the eyes are above the center line, and that's kind of a general rule of thumb that you want to hold to. And then also feel free to crop out the top of the head. You just want to make sure it's deliberate. Now, some people have a little trouble with this. It is a subjective decision. Call it subjective or artistic, either way. But if you think about it, the main information here is really in the eyes and the facial features. The top of the hair is really not going to add much to the image itself. So in this case, I went with a nice tight crop to really accentuate the face, and I think that comes across well here. And you also want to remember that most of these photos, particularly on social media, are usually pretty small, so that the more you can fill up with your face, the better. That's going to give you the biggest impression. So that really wraps it up. I hope that you found these tips helpful. And if you'd like to learn more, head over to my website at scottlawrencephoto.com. And that's all I have today. Thanks for watching. Bye.